over the past years, CBS News has reported extensively on sexual assault in the U.S. military. After our reports aired, the Pentagon made fighting this epidemic a priority. Now, after a 2-year CBS News investigation reveals a second crisis. It is domestic violence. We found gaps in the process of reporting abuse across all military branches. Service members, military spouses, and partners who reported abuse said that the military failed to protect them. The survivors told us the problem is pervasive and they feel it is overlooked. CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell joins us at the table. Norah, it's really good to see you. But it's so sorry to hear this because I know this must have been difficult for them to speak up, but very glad they did.
Yeah, good morning to all of you, and thanks for having us and letting us report on this very important story because the numbers are staggering. Roughly 100,000 incidents of domestic abuse have been reported to the military since 2015. The Pentagon hasn't kept track of how many of those reports involve violence, so it's actually impossible to know the full scope of this problem. What we do know is that these are serious crimes, and some survivors told us they felt they were in more danger after they reported them.
There's no doubt in my mind he was going to kill me.
In 2019, retired Master Sergeant Erica Johnson told Air Force leaders she was being physically and sexually assaulted by someone she was in an intimate relationship with.
Domestic violence is this unspoken bad word, bad phrase. Nobody wants to talk about it.
CBS News spoke with nearly 40 survivors who, like Erica, reported abuse to the military.
And I think in the military specifically, it's even more this forgotten crisis because there's this veil of a uniform.
According to Department of Defense policy, commanders are required to tell victims about resources, send reports to law enforcement for investigation, and ensure military offenders are held accountable.
Does the military provide enough support to domestic violence survivors?
No.
After Erica reported she had been raped and beaten, the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations looked into her claims.
How did they handle your case?
Initially, it seemed like they were taking me seriously. He checked his military weapon out and threatened me with it. And then as things went on, they just got really dismissive. They wouldn't accept evidence from me. They didn't use my statements. It just didn't make any sense.
Army Major Leah Olszewski has become a champion for survivors. She reported being physically assaulted to the Air Force.
I also told them that I had been strangulated. He had also threatened to break my neck, bust my front teeth out.
In 2019, Leah told her story before Congress. She says it changed nothing, so she's sharing her story again.
You had a miscarriage?
I did, yes.
And do you believe that was the result of the domestic violence?
Yes, he kicked me in the stomach, and I flew off the bed into the closet doors. And then he took the comforter and walked off like nothing had happened.
It's really hard to hear, and I'm just really sorry.
Thank you.
It is hard to hear.
Like Leah, Liz Knight was also expecting a child when she says she was abused. In 2018, just weeks after she'd given birth in South Korea, she called Army police for the first time.
He had put hands on me and was physical.
And why was that the moment that you called the police?
It was my breaking point. I had a 5-week-old infant. I felt like I needed to protect myself and my son.
Military police investigated and found probable cause to charge the alleged perpetrator with assault. It was up to his commander to decide the consequences.
His commander only issued a local letter of reprimand?
That's right. So the minute he left South Korea where it happened, it was wiped clean from his record, as if it never happened.
And do you think that was enough?
Absolutely not. The soldier is an asset. They need him. They have spent a lot of money to train him and to do his job, and who am I? As long as I'm removed and I'm not part of the problem, then they have their soldier.
When I was speaking to the prosecutor, he point blank told me, it might not be in the best interest of the Air Force to pursue this or hold him accountable.
Erica hasn't received a copy of the Air Force's investigative report, but she was told, based on the findings, the commander decided to take no action.
I felt so betrayed by the Air Force.
You feel the military betrayed you.
It was severe betrayal.
Do each of you feel that way?
Yes.
Betrayed.
Yes.
In the course of our investigation, we tried to find out just how widespread the problem is. The military is supposed to track disciplinary actions taken by commanders in domestic violence cases. But a report from the Government Accountability Office from earlier this year revealed the Pentagon hasn't kept comprehensive data on those numbers, even though it's been a legal requirement since 1999.
Did any of your cases go to a court-martial?
No.
2 of the alleged offenders are still serving, and 1 retired honorably. For these survivors, the apparent lack of accountability has led to a very real sense of fear.
He's going to do this to someone else.
And if it's not someone in the military, a spouse, it's going to be somebody in the community.
The next person he's going to kill. There's no doubt in my mind. And he knows how to get away with it. He's told me as much.
It took a lot of courage for Leah, Liz, and Erica to share their stories with us. We should note that one of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's early acts in office was creating an independent review commission to examine the issue of sexual assault in the military. And in June, that commission recommended taking decisions to prosecute both sexual assault and domestic violence cases away from commanders. The secretary agreed with that recommendation. So that is some movement forward.
That is good. I was struck by the woman's phrase where she said the veil of the uniform really stood out to me. And one woman who was told it might not be an asset to report it right now. It's so disturbing, Norah, to hear their stories. What is the Pentagon saying? What is their response to your...
Well, we spoke with a senior defense official who's acknowledged this is a silent epidemic.
Yeah.
And that official called it heartbreaking, unacceptable, maddening. The defense secretary issued a statement to us saying this is an issue that plagues our ranks and fundamentally impacts our combat readiness. So they acknowledge it, and we're actually going to post Secretary Austin's full statement to us on our website.
Removing commanders from these decisions is part of the solution, but real change will require more. What needs to happen?
Congress, right? Congress has to act on this. There are members of both parties that think it should be taken away from the commanders. That bill in the annual defense spending bill is before Congress. They need to do a full vote on it, and then that would create the change that so many survivors and victims want in order to address this. But I do think, there is leadership at the top of the Pentagon on this. Let's see what actually changes.
Norah,
but this is really one of the hardest stories I have ever
Really is.
covered in my
Really
entire
tough.
career.
Yeah,
Thank
but
you
you've
for your
been all
work.
on top of this, though, for a very long time. Thank you so much for coming on our first day. We
Oh, my
really appreciate
goodness.
it.
Great to
And it's stories like that that we're planning to do in the 7th.
Yeah,
really
thank
appreciate
you.
coming
Hard
to New
reporting,
York.
and thank you guys for having me. It's a beautiful set and good to see all of you.
Thank you.
Pretty soon the Pentagon will get the word Norah O'Donnell on the phone, and they'll be hiding under their desk. But maybe you'll get something. Things will change.
Change will happen.
Already burning
Reform.
up the phone. Yeah.
Reform will come.
Thank you, Norah.